Today I'm going to be showing you the BV 1800 by Bonavita. It is an 8-cup coffee maker, SCAA certified, that is the Specialty Coffee Association of America. And overall it's a really simple, fast, and top-rated coffee maker. Really great for your electric coffee making needs. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the machine, then go over pros and cons, and then show you a demo of the coffee maker in action. Alright, so let's just start right here with the on and off switch. That's the only switch on the whole machine. It does have an auto shut off feature, I think after 15 minutes, but basically what happens during the brew process is any water that you put into the reservoir will brew into the final pot. So if you only want to make 2 cups of coffee, you shouldn't fill the water past the 2 mark there. So that is something to keep in mind. It will stop brewing after there's no water left in this reservoir, which by the way pops open just like that. It's very easy to read, maybe a little bit darker than I like. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult to see the water, but overall I think it's easier than other comparable coffee makers. Now let's look at the base plate right here. This isn't a heated plate. It's just a plastic placeholder to set your carafe. And here's the brew head up here. I know it's a little bit difficult to see, but there are 7 spouts. They go across the middle here, and then there's 2 on the outside. So it kind of makes a cross, or like an X, when you see the hot water making contact with the coffee. So it does allow for an even saturation. Most coffee makers just have, or at least most electric coffee makers just have one spout where the water comes out and makes contact with the coffee in one place, and that doesn't allow for even coffee saturation. So that's one of the reasons that this coffee maker makes better coffee. Another one is that the brewing temperature itself falls between 195 and 205 degrees Fahrenheit. So let's just now look at the carafe. We have the basket, the brew basket, and you put a paper filter in there, number 4. There is 1 hole in there at the bottom, and this is a glass lined thermal carafe, so everything in there is glass, so you need to be careful with it, because I have heard that these can crack if you're not careful. Alright, so pros, things that I like about this coffee maker. Well, for one, it makes a really good cup of coffee, and that is for the reasons that I probably outlined earlier, which is water temperature primarily, and even saturation. The water also doesn't come out too fast from the brew head, which I think helps, allows for a longer steeping period. It's pretty quick. It brews a full cup of coffee, a full pot of coffee in about 5 to 7 minutes. It's really simple, easy to use. The carafe has a screw-on lid, which for some reason I can't find at the moment, but I'll show you that later. It has a little trigger that allows for a nice easy pour, no spilling, no leakage. It's great. And then, as I mentioned, the even water distribution and the sufficient brew temperatures. The things that make it SCAA certified definitely are major benefits to this coffee maker. The cons, the bad stuff, storage for one, I think is kind of annoying. I mean, you could just put it away like this, but once you add that lid, as I'll show you later, it gets a little bit trickier, because it's kind of an extra piece hanging around, and it's kind of an awkward design in terms of storage. I don't think the carafe holds the temperature of the coffee as well as it should. I've found that the coffee gets cold within the hour. Maybe I've got a defective carafe. I'm not really sure. I've heard mixed reviews about that. It's also a bit pricey. I got this for around, I think, $150+. It's a bit pricey for the limited functionality, so there aren't any bells and whistles here. You can't time this to turn on at a certain hour. It doesn't have a serving size selector. It's really basic for what it costs, but you are paying a premium for the SCAA certification. Again, the things that most automatic drip coffee makers don't have. And then I'd say the last thing is when I'm pouring out the last drip of coffee, it's kind of hard to get it out. You kind of have to tilt the carafe upside down. So that's a bummer, but a minor grievance. So I'm going to show you what this thing looks like in action so you can make an informed decision about whether it would be good for your home kitchen or office. And I'll be right back. Making the coffee with the BV 1800 is a 3-step process and a very simple one, I should add. So you take your paper filter. I use the Melita number 4, Melita, however you pronounce the brand name. And I just folded at the perforations here so it fits a little bit more easily into the carafe. And it's okay if you get it a little wet. In fact, I would encourage you to heat some water up and pre-wet the filter. We're not going to do that right now, though. It isn't necessary. I only like to do it to get rid of that papery taste. So I've got some pre-ground coffee, which I never use, so it's perfect for a demo. I won't pour too much in there. And I would just give it a little shake to even it out. Now there's a pretty low clearance, so you want to make sure that when you're sliding the carafe in there, that the paper isn't being folded back, and it looks to be good there. So that is one grievance I have about the BV 1800. There's very low clearance there, so you got to be careful. Because if that paper filter did get moved out of the way, you would just have water making contact with the brew basket and not the coffee, and that would be no bueno. So then we're just going to pour the water. I'll fill it up to about the 2 line. And again, not the easiest thing to read, but again, not the hardest thing to read either. And you just close the lid, flip the switch, and we're brewing. And it's going to be hard to see the water coming through each of those spouts there, but in about 20 seconds they will start dripping slowly, and I'll turn the video back on when that happens. And there it goes. It literally happened about 10 seconds after I turned off the recording. So you can see it's coming out slowly and in all kinds of different areas. And I'll show you what the coffee looks like once it's been fully saturated and the water is completely emptied out of the reservoir. So stand by for that. Okay, so we're just at the end of the brew cycle. I'm going to take the carafe off. And you can't quite see this X that I was describing before, but you can see that the coffee is very evenly saturated. The water's made contact with everything seemingly equally, so that's great to see. And once the water has cleared and we're ready to add the lid, just going to remove this top filter basket. I'd usually just drop it in my sink and then attach the lid, which is right here. So I'll go ahead and do that right now. So the lid just screws on like that. And then press this trigger down and pour. Just so you can see that it doesn't leak. Yeah, no drips. So That's a great benefit of this carafe here. It will keep your coffee warm, and you don't have to use a hot plate that will turn it into battery acid. That's one commenter described earlier. All right, thank you. So that is the BV 1800 by Bonavita.